She didn't have to show up. Nobody would have blamed her for staying home, for closing the curtains, for letting her team release a quiet statement and disappearing for a while. Her husband, of 25 years, had just filed for divorce. And instead, she walked onto a church stage in front of a live congregation, in front of cameras, in front of the internet. And she said 4 words that stopped people mid-scroll. My God is still good. That is either the most powerful thing a person can say in that moment, or the most complicated, or both. This is that story. If you grew up in gospel music, or anywhere near it, you know Mary Mary. Tina Campbell and her sister Erica Campbell formed one of the most celebrated gospel duo acts in history. Multiple Grammy Awards, multiple Dove Awards, a sound that crossed genre lines and reached audiences far beyond the traditional gospel world. Tina has been a public figure for decades. Her voice, her faith, her family, all of it part of a public identity built over years of ministry and music. And her marriage to Glendon Teddy Campbell was part of that public identity too. They married in August 2000, 25 years, 5 children. A life built together that from the outside looked like proof that faith could hold a family through anything, including, and this matters for the full story, a very public crisis that nearly ended everything in a decade. But we'll get to that, because the story of why this divorce landing hit so hard is inseparable from the story of what this couple already survived, and what Tina already sacrificed to put together. The divorce filing came from Teddy Campbell's side. He filed in Los Angeles County, citing irreconcilable difference. Court documents revealed something that had not been publicly known. The couple had been quietly separated since June 2024, nearly 2 years of private separation before any public filing. 2 years of living apart, or living in some version of apart, while continuing to appear at least publicly as a family unit. Teddy has requested visitation rights for the couple's 2 minor children. The filing is official. The legal process is now in motion. 25 years, 5 children, and it ended officially with a court document citing irreconcilable differences. That phrase, irreconcilable differences, legal language, the standard language. It tells you almost nothing about what actually happened. What it tells you is that whatever did happen, both sides eventually concluded it could not be fixed. And for Tina Campbell, a woman who had already once concluded that her marriage was worth fixing at enormous personal cost, that conclusion must have carried a particular weight. To understand the full dimensions of this story, you have to go back 12 years. In 2014, the WE TV reality series Mary Mary documented in real time on camera a cheating scandal involving Teddy Campbell. He had been unfaithful. Tina found out, and instead of walking away, she chose to stay. That choice was not private. It was documented. It was discussed. It became part of the public narrative of who Tina Campbell was. A woman of faith who chose forgiveness over exit, who did the hard, unglamorous work of rebuilding a marriage that had been broken. She talked about it. She ministered about it. Her faith and her decision to forgive became part of her testimony. And for years after that, the story the public held was one of restoration. A marriage that had been tested and had held. But insider reports, cited in coverage of this filing, suggest that what followed the 2014 scandal was not a clean recovery. That long-term strain, different personal viewpoints, and the ongoing pressures of public life created a divide that built slowly and eventually became a divide that could no longer close. The separation began, according to court documents, in June 2024. Nearly a decade after the crisis that almost ended it the first time. Here is the detail that changes how you read Tina's church appearance entirely. When she stood on that stage and said she had been in a season of prayer and deep meditation for the last 2 years, she was not speaking in vague spiritual. She was describing the period that maps almost exactly onto the separation timeline. June 2024. Separation begins. 2 years of private preparation of what she described as going deep in prayer, in meditation, in whatever internal work she was doing to survive what was coming. She knew, she had known, and she spent 2 years getting ready to be able to stand up and say, I am not ashamed. I am doing fine. My God is still good. That is not a performance of wellness. That is someone who did the preparation work privately, quietly, before anyone else knew what was happening, so that when the moment arrived, she could meet it standing up. The congregation did not know any of that when she walked in. It changes everything about the weight of what she said. Let's be honest about what it costs to do what Tina Campbell did. She didn't just show up to a church service, she showed up to her sister and brother-in-law's church, Cali Worship Center in Los Angeles, a place connected to her family, a place where people knew her, where the stakes of how she carried herself were personal, not just public. She took the stage, knowing the cameras were rolling, knowing this would circulate, knowing the internet would have opinions, and she stood there and she did not perform okay. She was honest. She said it was heartbreak. She said it was a transition. She said she had been in pain. Then she said she was not ashamed. That word, ashamed, is worth pausing on. Because for a woman of faith who has built her identity around her marriage, her family, and her ministry, divorce carries a specific kind of social and spiritual weight that people outside that world do not always fully understand. In many faith communities, divorce is not just a legal event. It is a statement. It invites scrutiny, it raises questions, even unspoken ones about what went wrong, who failed, what it means about your faith. Tina Campbell stood in front of all of that and said, "I am not ashamed." And then she did the thing she has always done when the words run out. She sang. She ministered through song, using her platform, using her gift in the middle of her own pain to reach the people in that room. That is a specific kind of courage that deserves to be named clearly. There are things about this story that are not yet fully known. The terms of the divorce, spousal support, property division, have not been publicly detailed. With 5 children, including 2 minors, and a 25-year marriage involving shared public careers and ministry work, those details will be complex. The next chapter of Tina's ministry looks like is an open question. Mary as a duo has navigated periods of individual focus before. Erica Campbell has maintained a solo career alongside the group work. How this moment reshapes Tina's public identity and her work is something that will unfold over time. The deeper question, the one that Tina's 2 years of private preparation suggests she has already been sitting with, is what it means to rebuild an identity that has been so publicly tied to a marriage. She said she sees her way through it. She said her God is still good, but the road from that church stage to whatever comes next is not a short one. And the full account of what these 25 years contained, the love, the betrayal, the forgiveness, the slow fracture, the private separation, the 2 years of preparation, has not yet been fully told. Tina said she is not ashamed, but she has not yet said everything. There is a version of this story that is easy to consume from a distance. Gospel singer's husband files for divorce. She shows up at church. She says she's fine, moving on. But the version that is actually true is more complicated. This is a woman who chose forgiveness once, publicly, painfully, at real cost, and spent years rebuilding something that ultimately still broke. Who spent 2 years privately preparing for a public unraveling she couldn't prevent. Who walked onto a stage in front of cameras and a congregation and said, "I am not ashamed. My God is still good." And then she sang, "Whatever you believe, whatever your view of faith or marriage or public testimony," Tina Campbell has been singing about what it means to hold on to faith in the hardest moments for her entire career. On the day her 25-year marriage became a court filing, she lived it. Not perfectly, not without anger or grief or the complicated mix of emotions Susie Lamb described in her own context as a bag you keep reaching into, but out loud, in public, standing up. My God is still good. Let me know what you think.